Like I said, I'm just a dude with a job, and 4 years ago I decided to pick up my phone just like Mike and start filming what I was doing. Um, Everything I do here, anyone can do, even if it's in a small area of a smaller backyard. You can't do it on 2 acres, but you can do it in 10 foot by 5 foot little square in your backyard.
Hey, it's Mike from Canadian Permaculture. Welcome back. Today, super special uh, farm tour video. We are visiting the Canadian Permaculture Legacy, and Keith St. John and his family are building a real legacy out here. Well, I should say growing a real legacy out here of perennial food. And so this is a fairly, I'm not going to edit. I'm going to let him tell his story as much as possible. But we came out here to learn a bunch of stuff and get some really welcome reminders of things that I know I should be doing, but I've forgotten to do. And getting an idea of the type of abundance that people can grow in their backyard. Because really, if we want to build a sustainable food system and not just one that helps to heal the land and heal our communities, and if we truly want to feed the world, we need to do more of this. We need to grow perennial food in our backyard. And Keith and his YouTube channel are doing an awesome job of demonstrating that in our climate here in Ontario, here in sort of southern, eastern Ontario. We get harsh winters and super hot, humid summers, and there's a ton of stuff you can grow here that you probably didn't even know you could grow here. So I won't gild the lily anymore, but we'll take you to the farm tour or the garden tour, food forest tour of the Canadian Permaculture Legacy.
Don't be denied, don't be denied, and let those stars in your eyes shine. We all soar to different heights, so mend those wounded wings and fly, mend those wounded wings and fly. We all see the world through different eyes. Some choose the road, some choose the skies. High above the world, show who you are. From way down here, you're a shooting star. From way down here, you're a shooting star.
Hey everyone, so my name is Keith St. John and I run the YouTube channel Canadian Permaculture Legacy. I basically started all this because we were having young kids, and then we started going down the same route that probably everyone goes down, where you start thinking about what kind of food am I putting in my kids. So we started kind of our own gardens, and when we started looking at what kind of things does the internet recommend you do when you have a garden, you start reading about all these fertilizer amendments that you should put on, and you should spray and kill this bug and that bug. And then I came across a video from Jeff Lawton, which kind of blew my mind because it was everything that seemed weird about that other stuff, and it was just more about integrating nature, working with nature, and that a forest doesn't really need a whole lot of humans to take care of it, but it still produces an abundance of food. That made a whole lot of sense to me, and it was aligned more with how we kind of wanted to live our lives. So I kind of fell down the rabbit hole of permaculture, and that was maybe about 7 years ago. And since then, we started by planting like 2 peaches and 2 pears on our property. And when those started coming in and the annual garden started bringing us fresh tomatoes, the taste of what that was like, that was it. I kind of got the bug, and the rest is kind of history. Got really addicted to just planting trees everywhere. This site here, I'm not a commercial farmer, so I'm not really focused on what's the most amount of yield and money that I can make out of draining my soil of nutrients for a profit, so that I'm, reporting to shareholders, or, I'm actually driving money in. I'm more concerned about what kind of system can I set up that is going to be very low maintenance, because I'm just one person and I work full time. So what's going to be very low maintenance but grow the healthiest food for my family, and possibly some side income of the actual abundance of food that we'll get, and then, you know, do it in an easy enough way, in a way that works with nature, where I'm not killing nature to grow food. So that's what the site goal is really all about. I make some sacrifices on maybe allowing diseases and pests to exist on my property, in the hopes that the fact that I have pests will bring predators that eat the pests, and then I'll get to a balance, instead of the opposite, where someone might see a pest and they'll remove the whole pest, but then they're removing the food for the predator that would solve the problem for them. So then now they got to actually just spray and kill the predator. So that's work, that's money. I would rather solve my pest problem by having predators do all the work for me, even if it means I lose the odd fruit and vegetable. So that's kind of the general goal of this property. It's the lazy way. It's the lazy way to grow food in a way that is, you know, ethically and morally sound, and builds the environment instead of tears it down. So let's go for a little walk. I'll show you some of the stuff that we have growing here. I'll show you some systems that I've set up, and you know, maybe if you're a commercial grower, you can do aspects of this, and if you're a home grower, you can probably do all of it. If you don't have the land space that I have, you know, maybe you can take a chunk of it and stick it in your backyard in the corner, and that works just as well. All the work's up front.
Yeah.
So I'm 6 years in now. All the work's been done. I do a lot of expansion that I don't need to do, and sometimes I think, why am I expanding? Because I'm kind of tapped out on how much I can manage now, even though it's not much. You know, you spread that little bit over 2 acres and it's a lot. But yeah, so really, if I wanted to completely stop everything, once the trees are decent enough size that they drop a lot of leaves down, you get that leaf litter instead of the wood chips, you really don't need to do anything. So this is where we started. So this peach tree here, and then there's a peach tree down there, and 2 pear trees. Those are the first trees that I planted here, and then everything else we kind of just tied together. So this is the first area. We're on roughly 4 acres here. 2 in the front and the side of the house is bordered by a stream, and it's fairly dry. It drains decently well. The back 2 acres is pretty much flooded out from every house in the neighborhood, as an artesian well that overflows, and it all collects into my property. So the back 2 acres are kind of unusable. It's like a giant wetland, which is useful for, you know, certain ecosystem. But we have about 2 acres that we can plant out. It's laid out where this food forest is kind of on the top, and then I've got a lower area down to the side, and just behind us, where we'll come back around after we do the tour in the bottom area, I've got a huge ecosystem pond that I've put in. So that's really the site layout. It's this chunk here down the hill, which will go down the side of the house, and then just the backyard. And that's all I've planted out. And that's taken me about 6 years of nonstop planting to get done. So it is a lot of work to get going when you're planting pretty much all by yourself. All right. So one thing that we really do try to work on is as much diversity as possible. We try to plant, especially in the fruit layers, things that we love to eat. So like my family's crazy about peaches, so we probably have a disproportionate amount of peaches compared to what the average person would have. Apples, my family eats lots of apples, so we have about 50 varieties of apples here. And pears are pretty good. Our family likes pears and grapes, so we kind of try to stay around those things. And then I really try to get my diversity in the herbaceous layer. So we have tons of things like yarrow and comfrey, and then different fruit bushes like hascaps and sea buckthorn and elderberry and currants. So we try to kind of squeeze as much in as we can. But the tree species are really kind of the major commercial fruits that we want to, that I know my kids will eat. There's no point in me growing a bunch of medlars, for example, when I know they're not going to eat those, as cool as it would be for me to say that I grow medlars. But yeah.
Yeah, the collector urge is strong.
It is, yeah. It's hard to fight. Yeah, so here's like a typical guild that I show a lot, and this is like a peach as an overstory tree, and then we've got nitrogen fixing and sea buckthorn, and we've got herbaceous layer with the comfrey and everything. And then I try to kind of do a 1 tree to 3 bushes to 9 herbaceous layer plants, kind of that rough ratio. And then when I cut and paste those little guilds, I try to include at least 1 or 2 nitrogen fixers, like 1 nitrogen fixing bush or like 3 nitrogen fixing herbaceous layers. Or if I can get like a nitrogen fixing tree, then I try to get that in as well for every 3, kind of matching the trios that Miracle Farm, Stefan, Subcowiak plants around. So I kind of try to model his systems as well.
So what are your main, is sea buckthorn your main nitrogen fixer? Or?
Yeah, sea buckthorn tends to be my main one because it spreads so much, and because I know that it dies to shade, so that I know that it might seem like it's spreading a lot in the first couple years and it might be a little bit scary, but there's enough evidence out there that it really hates shade and it'll die, that I know when my trees get up over it and start shading it out, it'll die. And actually this is a great, sorry, I'll try to keep talking this way because I know if I talk that way you can't hear me. Yeah, the audio goes all out.
Yeah.
So I do know, so for example, this peach here, the sea buckthorn used to be right under the peach. Like I actually remember it coming out through underneath the peach when I first planted it. And you can see that now that the peach, which is south of it, got just above it, it's really trimmed off and pushed it over to the side. So the sea buckthorn has figured out that it's not getting a lot of value growing over here, so it pushes out into the sun. And it'll do that until it meets something else that's shading it from the other side. So yeah, I do think that the sea buckthorn's a pretty good one to pick for up here because it's got a really, really nutritious berry. And then I'm very confident that when I need it to go away, it will. I can always just cut it right out like I've done for a couple of them. So yeah, I tend to focus on the sea buckthorn, but I also have gumi, I have Siberian pea shrub, I have black lotus, or black locust, sorry. And then I've got like herbaceous layer stuff like lupins and clovers, vetch, cowpea, beans, peas, things like that I spread around for nitrogen fixing. And then we have a couple buffalo berries as well.
And here you're using it as a shrub layer, but would you also use it in some places as part of your tree layer, your overstory?
So like this one here, for example, has gotten up into the tree layer area. The pear is kind of competing for it because the pear just really wants to push up super high. But if this was, pulled out a little further, it could easily be the tree layer by itself. And it's just that if I have it as the tree layer, it's not going to get shaded out. So like if I don't put something somewhat close that's going to get up over it eventually, then it is going to get to the point where it's like a battery feeding, rhizome spreading everywhere. Mm-hmm. So I usually use it as a shrub layer and try to keep it to that level where it just kind of starting to get shaded out by stuff, and then I'll cut it down. Like this one here, I should probably chop it like almost in half and let it, like I'll coppice it or pollard it and just kind of let it spread out, but then hopefully everything else will kind of start out competing it. But for now, like I'm only 5 years into this project, and this soil, it was backfill from the house when it was created. And when I dig and plant a new tree, I'm digging out half rock and gravel and then half stone. So, and then half the rest is just native soil. So I do really want to get a lot of, soil building going on in here, especially like up and around the house. Where it's a little further from the house, we have a little bit of native soil so that the soil's a little better. I tend to not use as many nitrogen fixing plants there because I don't really need it. And even if I planted them, the soil ecology is like in an area that's transgressed or transpassed where they would optimally, outcompete other plants. So yeah, they wouldn't even do that well anyway. So here's like an elderberry. We're not very far into the tour, eh?
Yeah.
It's like you plant it to show everything that you like. But yeah, here's an elderberry plant, and this is an extremely healthy berry for medicinal. You can make syrups and cough syrups with it, make elderberry wines with it, like the Monty Python, your father smells of elderberry. So yeah, this is a really nice berry, but the thing that I like about it is that the birds really love it. So I kind of will put an elderberry near, my most valued fruit trees because the birds will try to get this instead of drilling holes in my peach to, suck the juice out of the peach, and then the peaches just fall. And my kids really want the peaches, not the elderberry. So I do try to get stuff like elderberry in and around the peaches. And then like we've got currants, so the currants are actually in right now.
Oh, a nice black currant.
Yeah, so this is like super, super healthy, great for jams.
I'm gonna have to tuck into a couple here because I've never actually had a black currant.
So black currant's kind of maybe one of the more sour currants, but it's definitely an acquired taste. Like a lot of the
Kind of
healthy,
piney almost.
yeah, a lot
Yeah.
of the healthy foods will be an acquired taste where you taste them the first couple of times and you're like, not really sure I like that. I like strawberries or blueberries more because, you know, we're just used to like so much sweetness in our fruit. But I find that, you know, 6 years now into doing it, if I had blueberries and currants in the same area, I would probably prefer to eat all the currants, and I'd be planting more and more currants. So like your palate kind of changes as you do this, and then, you know, the things that are more tart, you end up actually really liking and appreciating more.
A lot of times that sort of tartness or the intensity of the flavor is related to the nutrient density, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
that's what we evolved to. That's how our bodies told us, like, okay, eat more of this,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
don't eat this. It's
Yeah,
not good
right.
for you.
Yeah. So this is service berry, so kind of the same idea. This is a really healthy berry to forage. It's a fairly small berry, and I think they're all gone by now. It's a fairly small berry, but it's got a lot of fiber in it, so it's a really good healthy forage. You're not going to sit out there and picking every single one off. I mean, you might, but you probably, it's not a very valuable use of your time. It'd be a lot of time. But it's good to just grab some and eat. Like I want that feeling where you're just kind of walking through here, you just grab stuff and eat it as you go out, and you're kind of like foraging your land, like kind of like a caveman. That's what I want in my retirement. And then the birds love this also. So same idea. It's like deflection from the other fruit trees that I don't want them eating. And then you can see like I haven't, like I do nothing in here, especially this year. We've been really busy this year. So like this is our rhubarb. You usually wouldn't let rhubarb do this. I certainly wouldn't leave it like this to have someone fill my food forest if I had any time. So this is like a indication of how much time I don't have, that, you know, I don't water this at all. I don't do anything with it. And I probably should, you know, tidy some things up, and I'll get around to it. But for now I got, you know, a bunch of seeds that I can spread wherever and grow some more rhubarb. So you can see here the dogs run right through here every day. I've been trying to grow clover in here to help withstand that, but with how dry it's been, they've just been tearing this hole through the food forest. So I'll probably design around this, right? Like I'll listen to the dogs that they want to run right through my strawberry patch, and I'll put a pathway through there. Yeah, so this is the strawberry patch here. The strawberries were fantastic this year. They really produced a ton. It's really, like you can see how dry it's been. So they'll bounce back, but you know, right now they're in a pretty rough shape. And I do have this. Anyone who grows anything near us would know dog strangling vine.
Yeah.
This is absolutely everywhere, so I do have to yank it out anytime I see it, and just make sure it doesn't go to seed. But this is great, just great chop and drop. It doesn't tend to root in the ground, so I just kind of throw it down. You can't give it to chickens, unfortunately. I've been reading that it's not good for the chickens. You know, it's dog strangling vine, and you know, just by the name, you should probably figure out. Probably not.
Do you thin your strawberries at all, or just sort of let her?
So
Let
I
it go.
kind of do. In the spring, I'll dig out like a big swath out of them, and then I'll sell them and give them away. So in that way, I do thin them, but you know, I certainly don't do as good of a job as I should. And it's just because every spring, that's when it's cool, and that's when you can actually get out and do like physical labor. And I've been doing so many expansions, like this whole side area, the lower area that we're going to get to, that you know, my focus, like I'm just one person, so my focus is on expanding out as kind of as big as I can in a controlled way. And then, you know, later on I can get around like babying each plant if I want to like optimize how many strawberries I get. But we do literally nothing with this strawberry patch other than, you know, giving a bunch away in the spring, and we still get tons. So, you know, if I wasn't getting any, then I might do something more, but for now we're getting lots still. So I think, you know, each runner is kind of, the older plants are dying out and the runners are coming up. So I do have some plants always in that like 1 to 2 year age range where they're really productive. So yeah, I mean, that's good enough. And then when I harvest them, I don't worry about stepping on them. You know, if I step on a bunch, that's me doing the job of thinning them, kind of. Yeah. Okay, so we just walked down kind of that aisle, and what I wanted to do is slowly creep out and take over as much of this as I could without my, you know, attracted too much ire of my wife, who I love, and she's very supportive of everything we do. But she said, you know, we have enough, and she said, you know, kind of stick it over there, and this is my front lawn for playing with the dogs and the kids, and you know, I totally get that. But at the same time, each year I kind of been creeping it out a little bit. So this was last year.
Do you want me to edit that part out, or?
No, it's fine. So last year, she's always like, why do you give me such a hard time in your videos? But, and like I shouldn't, she's actually super, super supportive of what we do. But if it wasn't for her, I would have a food forest right up to my front lawn. So a lot of people will see a lawn, especially permaculturists, and be like, why do you have any grass, right, at all? And, you know, the answer is that I'm just one person in a family, and I have kids and a dog, and there's other things, right? So, but yeah, if it was up for me, I would expand this all the way to the front lawn, or to the front door. So yeah, this whole area here, we basically added what we just walked through, and we duplicated it over here. But we did a, you know, a bigger focus on stuff like the peaches. So we've added a bunch of new peaches. So there's one here, here, and another one down there. So we added 4 peaches. And then we got a linden tree for the bees, kind of right where the bees would kind of be flying in to try to get them in and pollinating everything else. And then everything else is kind of, you know, it's the currants and the haskellps and the berry layers, sea buckthorn and buffalo berry that we've added in. And then we try to add in a little bit more flowers this year. So I've been getting like lupins for nitrogen fixing in here. And those are, they're probably not the best plant to plant if you're going to completely neglect something, because they're an annual. So, or they're actually a perennial, but they're a fairly short-lived perennial.
Mm-hmm. And it's like a cultivar or a wild lupin that
Yeah, just a wild lupin. So yeah, this is them here. I honestly, I'm fascinated that these are even alive, because it's been hot and like literally no water at all. So,
I think they're a taproot though, so
yeah,
once they're in there.
probably helping them.
What's this thing?
That's fig.
Is it a?
Yeah, could show that one.
Is it? So is that like a vanity attempt, or is that a super hardy?
Yeah, so this is a Chicago hardy fig. So it's hardy down to zone 5, and typically figs will, you know, so we're technically zone 5 here, but each year we get these gusts from Huron that send us into -40 range. So it's just whether or not we get that in any given year. For the most part, we stay around -20, -25, but we'll get those gusts that knock us down to -40, and that kind of translates to like almost even a zone 3. So as much as we're zone 5, the things that I plant should be able to survive like zone 3 stuff. So the figs are kind of a little bit of a, you know, yeah, vanity, like try it out, see if I can be the Sepp Holzer growing lemons in Austria, right? So these ones here, the reason why Chicago hardy fig is good is because it'll die down to the ground, but as long as the roots stay alive, then it's one of the varieties of figs that will actually fruit off of 1-year-old wood. So it'll grow up, and then it'll fruit on that wood, and it'll die to the ground, and you basically just chop it and reset it every single year. So you're not going to plant a whole acreage of fig, and you know, it would be a pretty silly thing to do, but you know, we had a bunch of figs last year, and it was kind of neat when people would come over and we give them figs, and they're like, like, am I in Spain right now? What's going on? Yeah, so that's kind of fun. Okay, so I don't know how easy this is going to be able to see, but the whole slope of the land kind of comes down like this, and I cut a huge swale pretty much from the corner of the house all the way over to here, and maybe I'll jump down in the swale. So I don't know how much you can hear me, but I'm down in the swale right now, and it's about 5 feet wide, and all that soil was put on the downhill side. I'll come up so I'm not yelling. So all the soil was put on the downhill side, and that way any rain that hits the land kind of wants to come down, gets stuck in the swale, and then spreads out and soaks down and kind of recharges the aquifer. So you plant in the berm side, which is the mound side, and then kind of all the way down the hill. And those plants should kind of have a really stable underground source of water to access, especially if they have a nice deep taproot, if they're kind of those kind of plants. So this is a way that it's really stabilized my land in terms of, you know, me never having to water it, because anytime it does rain, instead of the water all coming, usually it's not a problem of not getting enough water. It's usually just that when you get your water, you lose 99% of it because it flows off your land. So if you can stop it, hold it, and then get it underground, then you can kind of keep it, hold it longer, and you can withstand 50, 60, 80, 90 days of no rain. So I don't know how well it's worked because I can't like reset my land and see how it would work if I didn't have a swale. But all I know is that I haven't watered this food forest strip in like 6 years, and we've had some pretty bad areas of drought where you go like 3 months, 4 months with no rain, and really hot temps, and you know, everything's kicking, like everything's doing really well. So yeah, I think earthworks can be a big thing to.
So the swale being just a ditch that's on contour or slightly off a contour, so basically the water falls into it and has nowhere to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, nowhere to go but soak into the ground, and
Yeah.
chop and drop is never done.
Yeah.
But that's one that, if the amount of time people spend transporting plant matter to a compost pile and then back to the same spot that they took it from.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, this is all just great nutrient for the apples. So we've got a couple apples here. Yeah, and the sumac is kind of behind our shot there, and it constantly wants to, you know, creep in. So if it wants to creep in, then we basically just use that as a, you know, a nutrient battery where the sunlight that's driving it is kind of almost even off my land. And the water that it's sucking up is like off my land, but the growth is getting put onto my land. So it's like a free extra, you know, source of nutrient that's coming onto the land. Yeah, so this is the downhill side of the swale. We use like a Comfrey to kind of block out the grasses from going too much onto the under the trees, and you know, it works pretty well. And you can see that this area here, usually I'd chop it and drop it and I'd make Comfrey tea. I've been so busy this year that I haven't done any of that. But you can see this is like the natural life cycle of the Comfrey. Some people say you should step on it to, you know, drop it down, but it kind of does that by itself. And then all that growth there, that's the second flush of growth. So all this Comfrey is going to break down, and there might be 2 or 3 layers of Comfrey sitting on top of it, you know, just decomposing and turning into soil.
And on the side of the hill, it just follows that natural direction
Yeah,
too.
exactly. Yeah. I have a video on priorities you should have when you're selecting your land, and access to water is like #1, like by a mile. Access into the land and the ability to build on it is probably maybe #1. You know, can you actually do what you want to do? But once you know that you can build there, you know, you can get materials delivered there. If you want to go off grid, you can get solar delivered there, and you know, just all the building materials there. And then the law, can you legally do what you want to do? After that, it's water. So if you can find a site that's bordering a river or a stream, or you have access to some kind of, you know, underground stream that you know is there that you can tap into, so you can, you know, get a nice shallow well, or if you have like an artesian well like we have, you know, those are just pure gold. So we have a stream on the other side. This is one of the reasons I wanted to buy the property. And then this whole lower area is just slightly uphill of the stream.
And a nice little shady spot to cool off on a hot day.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's good to have this, like, I almost think of it like it's a cedar forest that we just kind of walk through a little strip. I almost think of it like a hedgerow that's, you know, separating my 2 food forests, and that way, if I have wildlife like rabbits or something like that, they have somewhere that they can, you know, build homes and then not do all the damage to my food forest. And then I also have places for foxes and stuff like that to build their homes to deal with my rabbit problem. I have places for eagles to build nests and hawks to build nests, and foxes. Yeah, I said foxes already, but yeah. So I have places for wildlife to kind of do their thing. And then cedar's really good for, you know, certain birds like cedar waxwings, birds that kind of want to show up really early and then nest really early. And you know, if all the trees have no leaves, then the cedars should at least provide somewhere for them to nest. So it's really important that you have some kind of evergreens on your property. So then the other thing that I have down here is we've got a bunch of wild apple trees that I've noticed hold their apples really late in the season. So January, February, there'll still be apples on this. And then I use this, instead of cutting these down and then putting good apples there, I actually use this as like a deflection for deer. So sometimes people say, what do you do for deer? We have lots of deer. So we have lots of rabbits and deer. Those are our main pests. But we leave all these up so that the deer have food in like January, February, and then they're eating this instead of eating the trees, because they'd rather eat like a fermented apple, get drunk and forget why they're here and wander off into the woods, than go and like eat my little 2-year-old fruit trees. So the other thing is down here, I'm a little further away from the pond. So if you notice swatting insects away, they get a lot worse down here. And I think it's because I'm just a little further away from that, like tons and dragonflies and stuff like that. So it really goes to show you, like, if this is the base load of what the insects population is like, that the food forest areas where I'm planting all the herbaceous layer stuff to bring in all the predators, it's almost not even noticeable up there. But down here, you really do notice there's lots more mosquitoes and black flies and just annoying things.
The shot's getting shakier.
Yeah, exactly. You're starting to hear the swatting. So when we first started, this was an area that I thought I had, a bit of an opening here and I could plant an annual garden. So this was one of the first annual gardens I planted. It looked a lot nicer. I got all this nice stone, and it was done up really, really nice. But it was kind of farther away from the house. It was harder to water. The stream is just on the other side of this bank here, so I thought I could get my water from there. But the problem is, just uphill, I got farmers who spray glyphosate all over their field. So that gets into the water, and then I was spraying glyphosate on my garden. So we got our water tested, and it was really, really high in herbicides and pesticides. So we can't use that water anymore. And then because of that, I didn't want to use house water down here. So I was carting down, water from our artesian well, and that was, a lot more work than it needed to be. So since then, we've moved our annual garden up to the front of the house. So this area I've kind of let go wild. I've planted out stuff for nature. So I've planted out a lot more pollinator attractors, and then low maintenance stuff like raspberries, nuts. I've put a ton of nuts in here so that in the future I can come down and just grab the nuts once a season. I don't have to necessarily come down here all the time. I don't have to baby these things. And then if wildlife wants to get some nuts and spread them all the way through here, then they can kind of plant my nuts for me. And then you can see this peach here. I think this one's pretty much on its last legs. So I'm not entirely sure what happened with that peach this year, but we did have a couple cold days in the wintertime, and maybe it just hit this peach a little bit different. But I'm pushing the zone on some things like peaches and pawpaws. Like we're zone 4-ish, but like I said, we get those nights where we hit like zone 3 temps. So peaches in zone 3. So I'm thankful that the other peaches are doing pretty good, and this one clearly not as well. This whole area, it was just a wild area, and every fall I go collecting leaf bags, and I kind of got known as like the leaf guy. So all my kids' hockey teams, some of the parents started calling me the leaf guy, and then I guess that just kind of stuck. But I collect like around 1,000 to 1,500 leaf bags every year, and just when I take my kids out to hockey, I don't like burning that gas for nothing, so I'll drop them off. I'll fill up a trailer full of leaves, and then I'll bring back home, and that way I feel like I've done more than just the hockey with that trip. And then when you do that like every day, you get maybe 50 bags of leaves. It's pretty easy to get 1,500 bags. So then I wanted to just put them in piles and then build nice leaf mold with them, that kind of thing. And I thought, what, I'm going to turn this whole entire area into a food forest. So this whole lower area, 2 years ago, I dumped like I think 1,000-ish leaf bags down here, and I put them like roughly 3 feet thick, and then just all through here. And I wanted to create these winding paths. And then this year, through tree time, I got a whole bunch of, geez, the bugs are brutal. I got a whole bunch of trees from tree time this year, and then we planted those out. So it's stuff like cranberries and cherries, and just kind of more wilder plants that the wildlife will like and enjoy, but then we can also come down and harvest them ourselves. So then this area here too, I haven't watered any, like I can't, it would be a lot of effort for me to get water down here. So I do nothing with this at all, and I'm hoping that most of it should survive. If some stuff dies, that's okay. The stuff that lives will be, pretty strong stuff, like the stun method that Mark
Yeah,
Shepard
Mark
uses,
Shepard,
right?
yeah. Sheer total utter neglect,
Yeah.
which easy to say when you have your own tree nursery and you're just grafting them onto your own rootstock, but when you're paying $50 a tree from a nursery,
Yeah. Yeah. So like, I wouldn't
hard
do,
to live by.
I would do Mark Shepard's actual method, which he says in some of his videos. It's sheer total neglect star, right? Where it's but for the first couple years you kind of helped him out. So if I was starting a brand new food forest and this was all I had, I certainly wouldn't just do the stun method and let everything die and then I waste 3 years maybe. And the couple ones that did survive would be strong, but I think in an area like this where I don't really care if any of this survives or if any of it does, I planted so densely that if 80% of it failed, the remaining stuff will still cover the area, and then other things can then grow in the shade of those trees, like the dappled shade. So yeah, but I mean, if you look around, pretty much everything I planted actually looks like it's survived. So lots of cherries and cranberries and raspberries. Elderberries, lots of stuff down here. Service berries. So
What's that big tree behind you there?
Oh yeah. So okay, come on over. Take a
I
look at this thing.
don't recognize the leaves.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a pawpaw. So this is a Cinema triloba, and this is North America's largest fruit, and basically it's like a cold hardy papaya, mango, banana, custard apple hybrid. So it's giant fruit. It needs 2 genetically different trees to cross-pollinate with. So this one here and that other big one there, I got those together when I first bought them maybe 4 years ago. And then I thought, you know what, that nursery probably gets it from the same supplier. The same supplier probably takes scion wood from the same tree. So they're probably actually genetic clones of each other. So I added a couple other pawpaws in and around. And then I think now we've got close to 15 pawpaws scattered throughout the property, and we're trying to kind of restore this lost ancient fruit that's awesome. So yeah, we're trying it out. We still haven't had fruit on it yet, but I'm really hoping next year I'm really hoping that next year we'll get it, because these two I think are old enough to get it. They flower a lot, but then they don't set a lot of fruit. So I think once the other ones that start flowering as much, and then they're pollinated by beetles, not necessarily bees, so you have to hope that you have that. So the other thing is, if I don't get fruit, maybe in the next 2 or 3 years, I might start hand pollinating them. But I really want to make sure that I have to do that. Yeah. So I might just tag some branches that I hand pollinate, and then I know if I'm only getting fruit set on those branches, then maybe my job is then to be the beetle. But I don't want to be the beetle if I don't have to.
Or what else does the beetle need to thrive? And
yeah, exactly. Maybe I can attract the beetle here. Yeah, but they're beautiful trees. They're very tropical looking. So we planted a lot around the pond that we'll visit now, and I hope it'll kind of give this weird Lost in Eden feel to the land, where you find yourself here and you're just like, this is really odd and strange and mysterious and kind of cool.
Doesn't feel like Ontario.
Yeah. Yes.
That's cool. I haven't seen one in real life before. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So then here's more of just wild apple.
Where did you get them? Sorry.
So we got those from a nursery in Trenton, and then Whiffle Tree has them. Green Barn Nursery has them. Grimo Nut Nursery has them.
Which is the one in Trenton?
I don't know. It's near the Air Force Base in Trenton, just right off the main road. I can't remember what it's called. Maybe you can edit it in, look it up. Trenton Nursery. Yeah. So
I'll Google it.
Yeah. So this is just another wild apple tree that the deer really like, and we've kind of really let this one grow right where the pawpaws are, so that they're eating the apples and not the pawpaw trees. And it's clearly working. We've had almost no browse.
Yeah.
Maybe they
and now they're up above the.
Yeah. Now they're up above,
browse,
and they'd be fine. But right here, for example, I've got, where is he? Yeah, so here I've got a pawpaw here, and something that size, the deer just
would be
take it right
lunch.
down
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's this? Is that something you planted, or?
Yeah. So this one here is colt's foot. So this is a great medicinal, and it really likes to grow here. It grows in kind of, more nutrient challenged soils. So if it's showing up in your property, it's probably because, it's, I don't know what the word to say, like
Deficient in something?
yeah, it's in its early stages of ecological transition. So to us, I leave this up because I want to see it slowly disappear over the years. And if I keep seeing it, then I know that, maybe I should try and do more soil building. So this used to be everywhere. And if you kind of look around, it's kind of in spotty areas. For the most part, it's not showing up everywhere. So that's kind of a good sign. But it is a useful plant. Yeah, so this is all doing really well. So that's kind of exciting to see.
Oh, these ones.
I haven't really been down here
Yeah.
because I've been so busy.
But even just stepping here, like your foot like sinks into the.
Yeah, you can really tell that it's it's really started to develop into nice soil actually underneath. Actually, let's pull some up. Let's take a look at what it looks like. So this is 2 years after basically putting leaves down on like dead soil, and that's pretty good. That's pretty nice soil. This was just garbage soil.
Which, that's the classic permaculture garden tour move. Like, look at my soil.
Yeah, right. It's working. It's working.
And other gardeners are going, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Which I guess who else is watching your garden tour video? But
right. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's nice when you see that because you know that the things that you're doing are actually working out. So this one here got hammered by deer in one of the years, and at the time it was my only other genetically different pawpaw, and so we put this little fence around to help get it up. You can tell that when we put it up, the tree was about this high, so it worked anyways. And then I think they're eating the apples and stuff as well. So this tree now is above the browse line of the deer, thankfully, and then hopefully it can kind of pollinate with the other ones. Yeah.
So what's your, and that's Jerusalem artichoke there.
Yeah. So this is the other thing. Deer during the apples work really well in like January, February when there's nothing, but Jerusalem artichokes is really the thing that they love the most. So they love the flowers, they love all of this, and then the tuber is what I want to eat. So I'm fine with them eating whatever. So we planted Jerusalem artichoke all around the pawpaw trees, again with the goal of deflecting them without fencing them off and precluding them from entering the whole entire property. So far it's working actually. Oh my gosh, my heart dropped for a second. That looked like a tiny little budding pawpaw, but it's not. That would have been fantastic. I don't think I do have any. I was looking the other day. Yeah. Next year.
Is that a thistle there? Or is that
this I think is burdock.
burdock? Okay. And that's an edible root, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they do make little nasty little burrs. So I've been kind of trying to transition away from them. In areas where the dogs go, I care more. And they're tough. I have to come down with a machete. But I don't really care so much about them down here. Up near the house, I've just started, removing them because the dogs come in with burrs all through their body. Where I dug out a lot of swales and all that kind of stuff, and I did a lot of soil disturbance, that soil disturbance triggers the germination of early pioneers. So in those areas, I was getting a lot of mullein and burdock and lamb's quarter and dandelion popping up. And those are all great plants. But I found that where they used to show up like 2 or 3 years ago when I was building the swales, they're not there. So for example, when I got COVID-19 in March, and we were going through our mullein tea and we ran out of the rest of our mullein. So then early in the spring, I was looking for mullein everywhere and I couldn't find it anywhere. And mullein throws out like 1 million seeds. Each plant is like 1 million seeds. And I couldn't find it anywhere. I have found it in a couple spots of my property, but for the most part, mullein is kind of just, the ecosystem is kind of transitioned away from the environment that mullein wants. And same with lamb's quarters. It was showing up, like anywhere that it would show up the next year, and like tons of it. Like I'm talking thousands and thousands of plants in like a square foot. And ever since maybe the last 2 years, same thing. It'll show up in some spots, but you can really tell in areas where I put thick wood chips, where I've got like nice dense planting, that I think the soil has transitioned away from them. Dandelion similar, because dandelion indicates low calcium levels in your soil, and dandelions will show up a lot in the lawn, so we have a lot of dandelion. But in the food forest, where it used to show up a ton, we're not getting any of it anymore. So I do definitely have signs that the soil building is transitioning the soil ecosystem, you know, towards more nutrient dense, where the food is hopefully going to be then more nutrient dense. And then also I think the wood chips are also developing a fungal mycelium mat that's very strong, and that's transitioning from the bacteria heavy soils that some of those early pioneers want. So yeah, I have a whole like video on like soil microbiology guide that goes through this in depth. But yeah, I do have a lot of indication from my land that's telling me that it's getting better and better and better. And I notice it because I used to have to water plants and baby plants here and there, and like now I feel like I've got to chop stuff to stop it from growing as much. It's more about stopping the rampancy now than it is about keeping the system going. I think if I stopped doing any inputs, it would just get so wild that, if my wife was up there, she'd be mad at me. But that like it kind of doesn't need me anymore. It might not be working as optimally as it could, but I mean the land certainly doesn't need me anymore to produce food. It's going to transition towards a food forest now, whether I want it to or not, pretty much. So, and the other thing we do is like we don't really mow a lot. So if we do mow, we let the plants grow a lot. Like you can see we're walking in fairly long, long grasses, and we're letting everything grow. And then, we'll do a mow, but we'll mow really high and very infrequently. So we kind of are trying to let the plants go through their natural life cycle as much as possible. And that I mean, if you want to build soil, that's the way to do it for sure. So this pond, when we dug down, we had a ton of soil. And I thought, what if I take all that soil that we dug out and we put it on top of the hill that used to be here, and we push that hill out. That lets me put a bigger pond in, and then it also gives me like a nice big planting area that gets reset. And then I was trying to think, what do I do with that area? And I thought, if I'm resetting it to ground one, I want to use it as a trial for like ecosystem development. So we planted a ton of pioneer plants, just like clover and vetch, and deep tap rooted plants, nitrogen fixers, and then we put a lot of native wildflowers in. And my goal with this area here was just to like put a giant seed bank on the ground and then let nature figure and sort it out, kind of do the whole Sepp Holzer thing. And it's been such a fun experiment, just what's popping up this year and watching it change as the years go by. So this is like, I call it Wildflower Hill, and it's an area where I've just devoted to giving it to nature. I take no productivity out of here, and it's all about bringing pollinators and insect predators in to eat all those nasty pests and insects that would otherwise bug you.
Yeah, the bugs are already noticeably not as bad, and we're not even 10 steps up the hill.
Yeah. So yeah, here's a serviceberry, so just heads up with that. Yeah, and then the idea here, like if you pan over there, just like look at the crazy, I mean it's a lot of black-eyed Susans right now, and yarrow.
Daisies.
But it's just
asters.
Yeah. And there's so much insect life down here. And if I have to go check on the pond and I step on some stuff, I'm just trampling it like a rhino would or something like that.
Oh, there goes your frog.
Yeah.
Imagine you get quite the serenade.
Oh yeah.
So was there any sort of water here before, or this is entirely?
Yeah. So this is so the pond. I guess we'll talk about the pond. I won't do a whole pond video because I just did like a 40-minute pond video on my channel.
Yeah, we've been following your progress on it.
So yeah, if you want to see intense details of the pond, check that video out. But this whole entire pond is a closed loop ecosystem, and I wanted to design something that looks as close to nature as possible, like almost like we built the house because this pond was here. Like a natural pond. We built the house next to it, so that's what I really wanted to go for. And that's another reason why I wanted this, really wild area down here to give it back to completely over to nature. So yeah, so this is the bottom waterfall. It's basically an upper waterfall, and then the pond, and then a bottom waterfall. And then it falls into this, and this is the pump section. So then it goes from there back up, and that's the whole pond.
Awesome. How long did, so I'm guessing there was some heavy machinery involved, and
Yeah, so this was probably about a 3-week build with 2 guys running a giant excavator. It's mostly probably about 2 days to dig it out, and then the rest was just moving the plants around, or moving the rocks around and getting them in place.
oh man, that downstairs patio.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
then
The sitting area functions, and
yeah, this was like a dream to build this. So this is like you're looking at, it's maybe an extravagant expenditure of money, but this represents 20 years of me scrounging every penny and saving every penny and scribbling it away in a corner. My friends always call me Scrooge because I didn't spend any money and all that. So, this is kind of what that sacrifice ended up working itself into. So I always want to do something like this.
and it's it's an investment too, right? Like not just in the enjoyment value, but in the the services that it provides. Like and that was it. Like when we first got here, I'm like, how does he not have?
Yeah.
Like I walk outside and I've got 15 horseflies all over me, but
And look, now, I mean,
nothing.
You can probably see it in the video. Like we're swatting. I'm trying not to swat my legs because I got horseflies on them and mosquitoes down there. My brain is it's like a ghost mosquito. I can still feel it, but there's nothing there. Yeah, so up here, nothing at all. So the dragonflies, we just have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of dragonflies, just Apache helicopter surveying the area and just killing everything. They're actually, fun fact about dragonflies, they're the Earth's most successful predator on planet Earth. They have a 95% success rate when they try to kill something. They're the best predator on the planet. So yeah.
That's somebody's PhD.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's it for the tour, really. Like I said, I'm just a dude with a job, and 4 years ago I decided to pick up my phone just like Mike and start filming what I was doing. Everything I do here, anyone can do. Even if it's in a small area of a smaller backyard, you can't do it on 2 acres, but you can do it in 10-foot by 5-foot little square in your backyard.
Okay, so that is Canadian Permaculture Legacy site tour. Super cool, very packed with information. There's a whole lot there. It's actually a month later, and I just finally got around to making the video, and it'll be posted up shortly. But I did just want to touch on a couple of things that jumped out to me as lessons learned that hopefully you're able to take these and more from the video and from Keith's project and his 6 years of experience that he's gained in cold climate permaculture. One of them is using your design and the characteristics of plants to contain potentially invasive but useful species. Things like buckthorn, autumn olive, especially things that spread through their roots, setting them up or putting them in places where they will eventually get shaded out and just die on their own. So you're not constantly trying to keep these from invading the rest of the ecosystem around you. The idea of using sacrifice species is another one of the ones that I'd read about and I'd sort of just forgotten to do. So things like elderberries, things like service berries, planting those near your high value crops, being the things that are high value to you, the things you really, really want to get out of your food forest. So maybe for me, cherries or peaches or something like that, and using these other species that are attractive to birds, but maybe not so attractive to you, to feed the birds so that they'll do less damage to your high value crops. The idea of indicator plants, it's something I don't know a whole lot about. I know like dandelions and chicory plants and those sort of taprooted plants are indicators of compacted soil, but really getting to know the plants or the quote-unquote weeds in your area and what is it that they're telling you. And Stefan Subkowiak has made some pretty good videos on that, and there is a lot of stuff out there, but again, it's kind of regional specific because you're going to have stuff there that we don't have where we are. And probably another thing is just that idea of continuing to try the rare fruits, and something like a pawpaw. I'd never actually seen a pawpaw tree before. I'd seen fig trees, but not anywhere other than a greenhouse anywhere where we are. And mental note to self that you need 2 genetically different pawpaw varieties in order to get fruit. So planting 2 of those from the start from different sources will probably save me a lot of time and heartache and wondering why I'm not getting any pawpaw fruit. Probably the biggest one, and is sort of, I pulled it out from a number of different things that Keith said, but that idea of integrating your food forest, not just with the biosphere around you, but the social landscape as well. That your food forest is maybe all consuming for you as whoever it is, the person that's driving the project on your land, but the land itself needs to be functional for everybody who uses the land. So not just you and the animals and the trees and all that sort of, and the pollinators and all that, but your partner and your kids and your dogs. So yeah, you might want to have an entire property covered in food forest, but where your kid's going to throw a ball around, where the dog's going to run around, and building that into your design, and having those as super important considerations, because you want to enjoy the land, but you also want everybody else who lives on or visits the land to enjoy it too. So like I said, a ton of stuff to pull out of Keith's project so far. I'm sure we'll go back for an update to sort of see how things are progressing, but super inspiring for us, because we're just getting to the point where we're starting to see growth, and that sort of the exponential growth curve that plants put on once they've established themselves in a site. So hopefully our place will look as good and be as productive as his place in within the next 3 years or so, and really looking forward to that journey. So thanks again to Keith and his family for hosting us and letting us delay their supper, and showing us around and teaching us a whole lot. So be sure to check out his channel. Links are in the description, as well as a bunch of links to some of the videos that he mentioned of Jeff Lawton's, of Steffens, of Kohiak, and also for the lovely song from Elmwood Harmony. You can find their band page too. So we'll see you next time. Cheers.